Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Okay, Nick, I had two major panic moments today. The first one, I nearly joined the ranks of Sir Nick Morris after a grueling 15 minutes of thinking I'd lost my Apple Pencil. And then, yeah, I know, but luckily I hadn't. It was actually on a shelf. I had purposely placed it there for a reason before I went away on holiday. And then the second moment was half an hour before this recording. I ended up getting the 3 terabyte time capsule for $300 on eBay, with outbidding someone at the last 5 seconds.
Oh, cutting it fun.
Yes, it was. I was the highest bidder for 4 days, and then in the last 10 minutes, 5 people joined in, and it was literally just back and forth, back and forth. And
that's an interesting buy at this stage. At this stage of the game, given what we've heard, I know you had said that you hope Apple could just give us some indication either way on where they're going, but...
Okay, they haven't changed the price of the retail. It definitely needs to come down. And so having that model at retailing at like, what, $460 or something. Actually, no, higher than that, it's like 500 and something. For me, getting it at 300 is kind of like more the price that it should be. So yeah. I feel like it's a good score on my part.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Is it 802.11ac?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. And yeah, because you're mentioning something about NBN, so having 802.11ac really makes a big difference. I don't have it, and luckily my Apple TV's got the wired connection straight in, so that gets full 100 down. And that's kind of where I mainly need the speed, and then all the other devices are pretty much use one at a time, whereas that's the main one, at least not drawing from my Wi-Fi speed. So
yeah, the main reason for me getting this is just to have that my MacBook Pro wirelessly backing up via Time Machine, and there is like maybe a couple of alternatives in terms of things that are Time Machine, capable, but I'd rather just keep it within Apple's own ecosystem and time capsule. It's all set up to work, and it's just going to be good not to have to worry about connecting anything, because currently I'm not even actually backing up, and I'm sort of getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I would really be stuffed if something happened to my MacBook Pro. So so
I think one of the other things just before we get started was, so sometimes I'll go onto Facebook Marketplace and just kind of mess around, see what's up there, because I've sold a few things there. So like I've sold a few phones and watches on there, so I thought I'll check it out. And I saw this guy post a Series 2 Milanese loop and Apple Watch stainless steel in its box, but the kind of like band that you put within the band is like a little cuff that's open on one side. The guy put it on the wrong way. He didn't actually put the watch in that hole. So I sent it to you sort of saying what's wrong with this picture, and kind of got into something really unexpected that you hadn't realized about all Apple Watches. So I
was trying to like skirt around this subject.
I don't think I was ever going to let it go, because for me, this was a crazy moment. So do you want to say or shall I?
Okay, so it turns out that having a coloured crown with the Series 3 isn't the first time Apple Watches have had coloured crowns. And not just red, but black and blue also, and white. So this completely, I put it down to that when Apple Watch had launched, I was adjusting myself to the fact, like, that price level. And obviously not having used one, I didn't realize the full benefits of it. But at first I was like, oh, that's too expensive. And then of course, any additions or stainless steel ones, I was just like, yeah, no, that's definitely out of my price range. And that's where those colored crowns applied. So I never actually focused on the images of them. And I was just always looking at the sport model. And therefore, by the time Series 3 come around with a red crown, I was like, oh, look, a coloured crown. And yeah, it was both embarrassing and educational.
I thought it was interesting because the actual black crown played a minor role in the reason that I originally went for stainless steel in the very first model, because it just looked so much like more polished with that black crown and sort of, and just the fact that the like editions had the color matched crowns compared to their band. You had said that you wouldn't really like that now, but if you're buying an edition at that time, it was kind of like those were really one-off, right? So it was, so for me that was like an astounding moment, because I don't know, it even played a role in the fact that I bought that model originally. So I guess, like, as you said, it sort of means it's less of a deal now that the LTE ones have a red crown. And I was actually at a shop the other day where the guy saw my red crown. He's like, oh, that Series 3. And we'll get into my review a bit later. But, I quickly gave him a rundown on what was new and convinced him to go out and buy one. So...
Mm-hmm. Cool. It's all kind of part of our duty as Apple enthusiasts to kind of like, we almost become impromptu salesmen without needing to be. So yeah, it's good to see. I think particularly with the fact, and we're going to just get onto this, with those initial negative reviews of this model, and then you can actually tell us how it really is.
Yes, I think that's important, and that's sort of where our podcast aims to be, is really just tell you first and foremost what it's like in our experience and what it's like in Australia specifically. So I think that those two things brought big differences compared to the reviews we had seen online. Yeah,
plus we are not like hired as tech reviewers or anything. We don't see every single model or experience every single model of every device. Those from major tech sites are in that position, so that wow factor for them is far lower. But
Absolutely.
for us, we're just like every other Apple user out there, and we're kind of giving you the on the street style experience, really. So to kick it off with product perception, Watch Series 3. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Watch Series 3 is my third Apple Watch. And so myself and my partner got the space black stainless steel Apple Watches, just the ones with the sport bands, because we have so many other bands that we could just sort of choose from. And I specifically actually went out and additionally bought the Milanese stainless steel black Milanese loop, which I'm really loving. It's quite like nice for corporate wear, which I obviously have to wear every day, so it goes quite looks quite smart there. And then it's really comfortable, so I can wear it at home or just in casual clothes too, which is really nice. So that's kind of the model I went with. Obviously I've got 42 millimeters, so it has because it's the Series 3 with cellular, it has the 16 gigs of storage. So I've synced a few playlists, which has been pretty cool. But that's just like a side note on one of the features that's been pretty nice. So in terms of the design, I've wanted the space black since the first Apple Watch, but unfortunately at that time it only came with the like link bracelet, which is way out of my price range, and so I settled way lower, and they didn't actually sell it with the sport band at the time. So now, luckily, it was within my price range, and I was able to get one, and I am so happy that I went with that versus like another stainless steel, because I already have it, and despite matching more bands, I'm just happy with all like sort of black bands or ones that don't have a stainless steel lug. So yeah.
I'm definitely jealous of that. I think your color choices and material choices that would be like the goal for me if I was wanting to invest what I can in Apple Watch. So I guess what we really want to know is, okay, first of all, people in Australia would like to know, I guess, the cellular plans or the actual costs for it and how it works with your current provider. And then, of course, the big one, the actual performance of the LTE.
Absolutely. So I'm with Optus, but so that's 6 months free when you sign up, and then thereafter $5 a month, but you get 500 megabytes in addition in your data pool, which is really nice. Because I actually wasn't expecting any additional data. I thought that the $5 was just for the service, but it turns out I get 500 extra megabytes a month. Then if you're with Telstra, you get 3 free months, and you get I'm not sure about the data, but it's also $5. So the Vodafone pricing is still to be announced, I believe, so I can't really comment on that. That's coming later this year. And in terms of the actual sign-up process, it was pretty much the easiest sign-up process you could imagine. As part of, so when you set up a new Apple Watch, the same way, like that little card pop-up for HomePod and for like AirPods, all of that sort of stuff that we've seen, that little card that's what pops up now for a new Apple Watch, which I was planning on using the 3D touch gesture from Apple Watch to pair, because how often are you going to use that? But anyway, the card popped up and it looked really cool. So yeah, as part of the setup there, you just prompted to sign in with your Optus account to set up cellular. All in all, it took less than a minute. I was able to use the stored iCloud password from my Optus account and log right in and accept the terms and whatever. So that was really quick and easy. No pain points on setting up either mine or my partners, which was really great, because the US reviews, especially with like AT&T, people were saying they had to call them, and it just became a whole mission. So the same way it's a lot easier to set up an Apple Pay card when you don't have to call, this was great. So that was a really nice setup. And then in terms of performance, so I had said before that I saw a lot of a need for actually having cellular. I've had a case where it has been an emergency, and luckily I was not quite out of range from my phone yet and was able to get the call. But, now I have that freedom. So, from day one, I went for a run with it without my phone, and we went in a group and sort of lost a few people who decided to not go the whole route. And so, they were able to then call me and say, hey, where are you? Let's just meet up at the finish. So that kind of stuff is just really convenient, and just became something I didn't even have to think about. Today, my watch was charging at my desk, and I was heading to a meeting and got a call for, call from like someone that I was waiting for a call from. So that was really cool. So I'm really impressed by the LTE performance. Obviously, I'm talking about real world performance. I'm not going surfing 500 meters out or however far just for the sake of it to try and prove a point. Like, this is what most people will actually use. Obviously, I do live in the city, so living in Sydney, I'm likely to have good LTE service. I can only comment from my real world usage, and it's been really, really awesome. So yeah,
that's really encouraging to hear. I just between as I said, those initial reviews for major sites and other reports of troubles of this in UK and that, it's just good to hear that your experience with it has been so seamless and lived up to your expectations. So in terms of the actual enhanced chip and everything itself, does it feel snappier, and was it like having Siri actually talking?
Yeah, so it feels a lot snappier. It's just so much quicker than both the previous Apple Watches. A lot of the apps now become usable. Unfortunately, some major apps are pulling off of the platform, which is sad to see. Apps like Twitter and then Instagram not really updating. So yeah, that's quite unfortunate. But the apps that have decided to stay, and again, I've always said that my favorite apps on the Apple Watch are actually just the built-in ones. Workout, music, timers, that sort of thing work really, really well. And one of the things that has always been a feature that I enjoy using but don't use as often as I'd like to because of the lag was the camera remote. So that often had like significant lag in displaying the picture and just trying to remotely open the camera app on your phone. Now that is so much more seamless. It's actually so much more usable and supports multiple modes. Like I can use portrait mode and take a picture or a video and all of that stuff. So that's great. And in terms of Siri actually speaking to you, so I know a lot of people had said that was really fast. So I'll say that it's not quite as fast as the iPhone, but a lot quicker than previous generations in terms of actually registering what I'm saying. And actually speaking back is fantastic. So I've mentioned before that I have a Google Home, and that's quite easy for like setting timers and just doing household sort of AI stuff. And now with Siri actually speaking back, asking it what the weather is compared to Google Home is just my preferred workflow. So having that sort of speak back convenience is really nice, and something that we weren't quite sure why it wasn't there in the first place. I had thought it was a design decision, so it's good to see that, even if it was, whatever's happened now, it's actually there, which is really nice to see. So I use Siri quite a lot, and one of the interesting things was it had to download the voice from my phone. So sometimes I have issues with the South African Siri, so I swap back to Australian. And so while it was swapping, the voice hadn't downloaded, and it actually, like, I went back into Siri settings and said, oh, it's downloading the voice. It will use the voice from your iPhone, and it's like X% through, and then that would only do it over Wi-Fi. So that was just an interesting side note, that if you do swap between voices and you're not sure why Siri isn't speaking back, just go into the settings and check how far that sync is.
I'm loving all these comments. I gotta admit, I am quite jealous. It is to me, if they do anything between Apple Watch releases, just improving the chip and making things faster and how they're meant to run, or initially intended to run and be smooth and instant. That's pretty much like all I want from it. And so I love what you're saying there. And then that kind of gives me even more excitement for, say, let's assume they release a Series 4, let alone whatever else they can build into it. But so how do you see? I mean, obviously you can't completely cut the phone, right? Like you need your phone for a lot of things. But how would you feel it? Like, how do you think you'd go by just leaving your phone at home for a whole day?
See, for me, it is quite different because I'm like, it's kind of just me and my partner in Australia. So I don't expect calls quite often. So, if I'm out on the weekend, I would just have like fewer people calling me naturally because a lot of my support base is not here. So like that kind of, I'm not as tied to my phone as a usual person, but I could imagine, heading out for a run in the morning, going to the store to get some groceries, and then, doing one other activity, say going to a market or a movie, and not needing my phone, because, in none of those situations you actually want to sit on your phone, but in all of those situations you want to be able to make an emergency call, receive an emergency call, or just like text somebody. If you're meeting up with them or plans change, you want to know about those things. So I could imagine, spending a whole sort of weekend day without my phone pretty easily. I've said before that I love my iPad, and I don't mean having the combination of watch and iPad, which are already a great combination, but you could pretty much just live it a weekend day with just the watch, I think, pretty easily.
Cool. It's very good to hear. And so, because I'm still waiting for Apple Pay support, can you actually use Apple Pay watch only?
Absolutely, yeah. So we spoke a little bit today that it's it doesn't need a data connection, so it's pretty easy to just use Apple Pay. I love Apple Pay on my watch. Like it is so much more convenient than anything else. I still get reactions to this day. It's just my favorite way to pay. I wonder how much less I would spend if I took the card off my watch.
Yeah. Exactly.
Imagine having to take your wallet out. It would just be such a pain.
Oh no. All that physical, hand movement.
Exertion.
So taxing, yeah. Okay, and then lastly, do you think you're going to try surfing with it?
Ooh, it would be a good excuse to get out on a surfboard, right? But then do you think The Verge would pay me to like write a review on surfing in Australia with the Apple Watch Series 3?
I reckon just submit it anyway. It's got to be better than the one they did. Boom!
Yeah, that's true. Fair point.
Okay. Awesome review. Loving that. Now continuing on the watch theme, watchOS 4, so something that I can actually talk about as well. We're just going to get into basically features that we like, obviously the watch faces, and anything we don't like. So for me, if we're talking about features separate from the watch face, I love how now playing is handled. It's pretty much all I've wanted is I didn't like having to keep going back to the dock and sliding over to now playing. The fact that you can swipe over straight from within a workout, or the fact that it's the default screen when something is playing. That's perfect. There's actually an addition to the message complications that it actually shows you a little number of how many unread messages you have. So that's handy to see. And I love the new animations for when you're completing the rings, and the fact that they kind of work separately as well. So you can, if you finish all at the end of the day, you get that awesome like triple ring firework style animation. It looks excellent. I love how it ends as well. So it's all very crisp, and then it kind of like blurs out. That looks really great. The workout app layout. I mean, I don't usually switch between types of workouts, but I just like the kind of card style of it. And overall, just more use of the digital crown. Just like changing the volume and interacting with watch faces more. And it's just a good excuse to kind of like get more of that scrolling action there. Now, I don't often touch the screen itself or swipe around with the screen, but the fact that they've just added a few of those things there is good. And yeah, so before I talk about watch faces, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'll try and like say in addition to your stuff, but I really must concur with the new rings for completing your tasks. They are so cool. Like they encourage you to really get involved and sort of reach all three and see all three of them go around. It's just like such a cool thing. And they've also encouraged me to like use the automatic replies more again, like for congratulating people and that I have activity sharing with for reaching their goals. So they're sort of reigniting some interest there. Just to add on two of my favorite features. So the new heart rate features, I haven't received an elevated like heart rate notification, but the resting heart rate after 2 minutes is pretty cool. And I was like Googling a whole bunch of stuff to actually see what that means. So just to see like how, my heart's age kind of thing. And those are really nice, like to see them adding some features there. And then also workouts with music. So that, for me is really great because I don't have to start a workout, then hop to music and then press play. It kind of is all just in one app and just one swipe away, which is really nice when you're all like, say, starting a timed run. You don't want to be messing around. You just want to press play and then, do your workout. So that's kind of a feature that I've really wanted for a while, and that's kind of implemented exactly as I would have expected. And then just it's more like Watch Series 3, but just the integration of the barometric altimeter, I think is what they're calling it.
Yes.
Just that in workouts is really nice. So yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And something that I know you're a huge fan of and you want to get into, new watch faces. So I'll kind of let you kick this one off.
Oh yeah. So my favorite watch face is the Siri face. When they announced this, I said I jumped up and down, and it was really exciting. So I'm loving it. It's my daily watch face. I kind of did customize it a little bit. I think I've taken off breathe integration, and there was one other that I took off. I'll try and remember or go look later. But yeah, so I have customized it a little bit, made it more for me, and it's just great to like sort of at every point know what I need to know. I absolutely love it. I haven't customized the complication. I just like seeing the little Siri orb, even though I never use that complication. But yeah, and then again, just to go on the Series 3 watch faces, the new Explorer face is pretty awesome. I only have the Siri and Explorer faces set up, and they it's just really cool. It's got like such a nice design. It's really clean, but with the red hands, it's also really nice. So yeah, I don't think either of us are using Buzz or Woody. I just added it for fun, but I don't really ever swipe over.
Yeah, I mean, I love what they've done with that and the tie-in, but currently at this point, I have an affinity for some of the other newer faces over those ones, but I love the fact that they're there. But yeah, for me, I'm just going to talk about this, same as you, Siri face. I think it looks great. I love the fact, use of the digital crown. You can scroll your kind of like past events and then your future. And the way it just kind of snaps back. And then, that slow-moving Siri orb. I went through a period of about an hour where I kept saying everything was a nice touch with watchOS 4, and that is definitely a nice touch. So there you go. Yep. But I think it looks great. I love the bold time on it. That's fantastic. But the one I ended up actually switching to, so I did Siri watch face for a week. And then I realized, how you just obviously can create your kaleidoscope watch face straight from a photo. And what I said from the start is when they show kaleidoscope off, they were using quite bright photos and it was hard to see the hand. So I said, when this comes out, I'm going to use a darker photo. And I did. So I've currently got this like dark blue with splashes of kind of like red aerial shot of like a nighttime northwest WA. And it just works so well for the kaleidoscope face. And the fact that when you scroll the crown, it flows through the kaleidoscope effect. So that's cool to just sort of show off to people. And the complications actually adjust color according to kind of like the majorative color within the kaleidoscope. So say like the center of it is more orange, the complications then become like a darker tint of orange. And same with like if it's more blue, they become sort of like bluish, bluey grayish. And I just love that. So that every time I look at it, the whole thing ties in. The only thing I wish is that they've got a complication at the top left and top right, but the bottom one is just kind of like full width. And so I kind of had to do the world clock hack, but it's constantly telling me Perth. So unfortunately, I just wish if you could just show just the digital time without having the world clock aspect to it, that would be great. All right, Nick. So we've talked about what we like about watchOS 4. Are there any things that you want to change or that you don't like?
So I think I'll need a bit more time with it because usually I'm like really patient with things that I don't like in the beginning. So I'll have to sort of see what frustrates me over time. But one of the things that I found a big change or, less intuitive is just kind of, or just less ingrained on how I've been using it is the now playing screen. So I actually like it when I raise my wrist, but it's something that I just don't expect to be there and I sort of often have to jump out of it. So that's kind of just something that's different that I have to get used to. That's kind of it really. I don't really use the dock or anything like else that's really new. So it's kind of just, I need more time.
Yeah, I've noticed I haven't actually used the dock as much as I previously would, and that's purely because of the now playing factor. But I like the new dock layout. I just don't think it shows enough apps in one view. You kind of get like two on one screen. It'd be good to have kind of like a bit of the third one as well. But I love the flow of it, the sort of near and far kind of like card scrolling aspect to it. And as I just mentioned before, I wish I could have 4 complications option for the kaleidoscope rather than 2 at the top and a single full width one at the bottom. So that wraps up watchOS 4. It's all quite new. We had plenty of time with iOS 11 betas and the High Sierra beta, but because watchOS 4 is only in developer beta, it's all new to both of us. So I'm sure as time goes on, we'll be able to kind of weigh in on other things that we want to improve or other watch faces that we actually like.
Yep, absolutely.
So speaking of iOS 11, what I want to do is that iOS 11 is so iPad focused that I feel like that the iPhone's sort of been forgotten a bit. And so I want to dedicate a bit of time just talking about our iPhone only experience of iOS 11. Now, neither of us have purchased new iPhones yet. I'm still waiting for the iPhone X pre-order. But so we're both coming from the aspect of upgrading on our existing phones. So I just want to list off some of my favourite features. And I think something to take into account anytime you do a major software update is it's never going to be running super smoothly from the start. There's like various things that has to do in the background, like, reprocessing, scripting and all this other sort of stuff. So I think if you're just doing the update straight away and you think, oh no, this thing is running slow, just give it a good few days and everything kind of picks up. But what I really love is Control Center. Now, that all-in-one view, editable shortcuts, it looks so much better in real life than the initial preview we saw. Because you remember when we both saw, we were talking about WWDC and we're like, oh, this looks kind of like messy and it's all been sort of thrown together. Man, in real life, it is so much better. And it makes you realize how much better it is than than iOS 10's offering. And from this, I just love how smooth the volume brightness sliders are. It feels so much more natural going up and down rather than all the way left and right. Now, I actually deleted the Apple TV remote app purely because there is that shortcut for it and I use it all the time. I love the fact that live photo effects, that you're able to actually go back to previous live photos and use them. So this would be much similar to you taking a portrait mode photo and then being able to edit it retrospectively. It's like still using the same data but using new effects for it. Pin notes, I've always said I've wanted pin notes, and I've already got like 4 pinned up there. Use them all the time. That's very handy. The Files app is great because I use iCloud Drive and Dropbox. And previously on the iOS 11 beta on iPad, anytime I added Dropbox, anytime I pressed it, it would pop up in its own window. I was thinking, oh no, I don't think this is how it's meant to be. And then as soon as the actual iOS 11 rolled out, it's actually properly kind of like baked in there. I think they must have just done an app update to do that. And now the new App Store. I mean, we know that I've said I love new icon. I really do. And the actual redesign of the App Store itself, I've never paid too much attention or too much liking for the App Store, just because generally it's had kind of like slow search and that sort of thing. But this new design, everything, the full artwork and how everything is bold, but it's all clean and like white background. I actively want to go in there and see what they keep putting up each day. So I really think that redesign has worked in its favor. I completely had forgotten about Type to Siri. So I've actually enabled that because I use Hello Siri. Yep, didn't trigger it. Good. And so, I enabled that, and it's just great for at night time, or especially if I'm at work. I don't want to be... There's still a little bit of that, embarrassment factor of using the Hello Siri command around people that don't use it. So having Type to Siri is great there.
Quick question on that one. So Type to Siri will be if you hold the button, but you can still use Hello Siri and it will allow you to speak?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. That's exactly how it is. And that's what I like. I like the fact that Type to Siri didn't override everything. So I still have Siri how I've always used it. But now I've got this kind of like option to use it in situations where I don't want to be talking to my phone.
Okay, and then just to double check that, like the converse case where if you press the button, then you can't use your voice. Or you can do voice or type.
I'll try it right now. Hey Siri. That overrided it.
Okay.
So the trigger overrided the fact, but the actual interface itself looked like there was no microphone involved. So it was all set up for like typing. But yeah, it's good to know that you can just...
I think I might use that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's cool. And I love the fact they removed the app names from the dock icons. It's something so simple, but it's just... I don't know what it is about it. It's just... Because I wouldn't want them to remove the names of apps for everything, because it would just... that would probably get too confusing. But your dock icons are there for a reason. Use them all the time. You know what they are. And it just looks so much cleaner. So I really love that. And that obviously then ties in with the actual dock style shape on iOS 11 iPad and iPhone X 10. So that's a good reason there. And then I think lastly with that is the iMessage apps themselves. I just think the way that they're displayed, the way they're accessed seems a little bit faster. So I think that's an improvement. What about you?
Yeah, so most of those things I'll agree with. So I'll just probably talk to one or two of the points. Sorry, I just have to. But on pinned notes. So I swear there was a bug on my iPad with pinned notes, and I think when you create, because with the Apple Pencil, if you tap on the screen when it's locked, you can edit a note. So you can either create a new note every time, or you can create a new note each day, or you can always access the same note. And for convenience sake, I had accessed the same note, and I think it pinned it. And there was a bug that didn't allow me to actually unpin notes at the time. I think it was in the GM or one of the earlier versions. And so I was basically stuck with this note that I did not know how. And I tried every swipe, but it didn't work. And I thought, I must be getting old or something, because 5 years ago, me would have been able to figure out how to damn well unpin this note. Anyway, it's exactly what I would have first checked, which was the right swipe. And it just seemed like there was a bug. So I think pinned notes and I got off to a bad start, unfortunately. And then there will be there's another feature that I don't know when it came, but I found very, very handy, and maybe it will be an iOS 10 thing, but I'm going to mention it anyway. So I don't really like saving people's numbers who I don't really need to contact very often. So I'll give the example of my landlord. Or the real estate agent, I barely ever speak to her. So I don't want to save her number. So I'll just go into contact and just search her name, and it reads through my emails and finds her contact numbers and then shows me them and allows me to choose work, mobile, whatever. So that sort of enhanced Siri search, which never really gets enough credit. I don't care when it came about, but it's a feature that I don't think is widely used, and I'd just like to bring your attention to it, which is just sort of search anyone that you've got an email from and you can find their number there.
I think that was iOS 10 and iOS 11. So do you remember when they showed the thing about, I think in iOS 10, when they were searching locations in Iceland or whatever on the web?
Yeah.
And then Siri, oh no, not Siri. Well, when typing in a message, it remembered that as a suggested name or whatever, because it knew what you were searching. So I think this is kind of like a build upon that.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I'm not sure whether it landed in 10 or 11, but that certainly sounds handy. Anything else?
Oh no, that's it. As I say, all the things that you've mentioned are some of my favorite things. I just on the Apple TV remote, I actually was using that earlier, and I thought to myself, the actual app is useless. I just need, because I went to the app and I force touched it in the hope of a widget that would be the same as the control center widget. And then I was like, if that did exist, no one would ever need to touch the app.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we have some differences here. You have a 7 Plus, I have a 6S. I want to talk about the performance on it. There's been some articles going around saying that Apple supposedly purposely slowed down performance on previous models to make you upgrade. I have had some slowdowns in some areas, but it certainly doesn't feel purposeful. So overall, once I got past that initial kind of few days, that I'll give it to kind of get it set itself into its own pace. It certainly runs well enough. I think iOS 10 was smoother overall, but I feel like that's purely just a point update thing. Give iOS 11 a few point updates and it would be pretty much at that level anyway. The one very noticeable one for me, which is really disappointing for me, is the Notes app. It's just become really sluggish and delayed for me, and sometimes it crashes, and I use it all the time. But all the other apps are fine. It's just the Notes app. So hopefully a point update gets a fix there. Now, when you're sliding over for the widgets view, it isn't quite as smooth as I'd expect it to be, or as it was in iOS 10. But that's only on some occasions. Now, this being the earliest release of iOS 11, there are some visual errors, like alignment and that, but that's more me from a graphic design perspective. So it's not going to be noticeable for the majority of people. So I was really kind of looking for it, but I feel like those are going to be ironed out too. Now, I only had one 32-bit app that I couldn't use. Unfortunately, I didn't check beforehand because I just assumed that all of mine would work. And it was actually Typewriter, which we reviewed episodes ago, a game that I really enjoyed, really love the art style of, and unfortunately I can't play it. So I'm going to contact the developer and just hope that they can do a 64-bit version. And aside from that, I mean, I know we're talking about the phone, but iOS 11 on the iPad Pro runs really well. So no complaints there. How did you find it on the 7 Plus?
Yeah, so I found it really pretty smooth. I don't really have any issues. It runs the same as iOS 10. On my iPhone 7, so a 7 Plus, I've been pretty happy. Battery life probably has taken a bit of a hit. Then again, the phone is nearly a year old, and who really knows? Combination of playing a game for a long amount of time on the train, constantly, probably doesn't help either. So, it is kind of not really much to complain about. However, I have received a lot of complaints from friends and family, pretty much, so sick of iOS 11, it's making my phone crash, and this on the 6S and even the 7. So I've been really copying it as though I'm Apple support, trying to help people out here. And I'll probably use their negatives when we cover the negatives, because I haven't really experienced any. But just my personal experiences on the phone has been way smoother than the iPad. I've had a few issues on the iPad around notifications causing the whole quick reply screen to bug out. And so, on the iPad, not quite as smooth, but on the phone, fantastic.
Cool. It's good to hear. Some negatives for me would be, this isn't really a negative, but one had a quick type. I thought it was a great feature. I tried using it out, and it's really not a usable feature for me on my 6S style size screen. For the Plus, for sure, I reckon would be, but for me, just with my kind of general hand size and the standard size phone screen, I don't really need to use it, but it's good that it exists. I love the look of the podcast app. It's pretty much what I thought it'd be, but I think first going into it, it's a little confusing and less intuitive to use. I've gotten used to it now, but so many people hating on it. I mean, obviously it's a popular thing to hate on any change online. People on Facebook, I remember when Facebook used to do little changes, everyone's like, bring back Facebook 2.0.
How many petitions did they
start? Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this will grow on people. But I think for most people, it's not the look of it that they're disliking. It's more just the rearrangement of things. Yeah. And then I said I like how iMessage apps are handled. I still think that the icons as a bottom row by default is a bit busy, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And you can always just tap that sort of app, iMessage apps icon, and it hides it. So yeah, it's not too much to complain about.
Yeah, so I think just on the podcast app, and I get that it has become less intuitive. If I had to take a step back and think, which is the way that podcasts should be used, right? You should listen to podcasts that you like more than the other ones that you subscribe to, and you should have the ones at the top of the queue that you actually care most about, and you should have a way to check podcasts that are similar to the ones that you like listening to, and those I think are all addressed better in the new podcast app than the previous one. A chronological order, even though you get to know which days your podcasts come out, so you kind of will go in that day and look for it, and might not be at the top because hey, you didn't listen to last week's Apple Slice, so here it is at the top. So that kind of makes a bit more sense if you had to start from scratch, but certainly if you were to compare it to previous podcast app, a little bit more confusing. But you can always get the chronological by going to the second tab and then clicking episodes, and then it'll give you the chronological. So, if you do prefer that, go for that. But one thing that I've really struggled with podcast app is writing reviews. I don't know if this is another case of actually being aged or what, but I just can't seem to find where to review a podcast easily. You used to have to search it and then click into the podcast and then sort of go to reviews and write review, but I can't seem to find the write review button.
I kind of had given up on that a fair while ago, so I haven't even looked into that yet. But that is a prominent complaint, especially amongst podcasters. But what I do love is the introduction of chapters and actually having the little tags like this is a bonus episode and this is a trailer. I've started using the bonus stuff. I put chapters on our iPhone event episode, so it's good to see that in action.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just quickly rattle off some of the friends and family complaints. Some screenshot confusion, which started off as a complaint, but I actually managed to turn a colleague around because she was basically saying like, no, I like to screenshot and then go into the screenshot in photos and then zoom in and then screenshot again. So I was like, no, you don't need to do any of that. Firstly, if you wanted to do that, you could still do it, because if you just ignore the little icon, it saves it anyway. So it doesn't actually change your workflow if that's what you enjoy doing. However, the new screen allowing you to actually just tap on it and crop it means that the whole double screenshot thing is not necessary. So that, and then you don't keep them forever for no reason. So I managed to turn that one around, but again, a lot of crashes and bugs on older devices. And then the confusion with the new Wi-Fi and Bluetooth toggles in Control Center, causing some frustration there where I think they had like ask to join networks on, and then because their 6S was already buggy and laggy, now they then get asked to join a network, and then the whole phone freezes and crashes and restarts. So I can imagine that that's pretty frustrating. And I just, on a 6S, you shouldn't really be seeing that stuff. So yeah, certainly some stuff to work on. It's a big release, so
I'm sure it'll be addressed in future point updates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I found the right review button. I have found it on my iPad.
Nice.
It is actually underneath the ratings, like they have the little square grey boxes.
Yep.
Purple writer review. So yes, I'm not that old, and it's not that unintuitive.
Nice. It is good that it actually brought up screenshots, because I really love how screenshots are handled. I like the fact that how it is on iPad Pro, I can do the same thing on iPhone. So that's a good one. Okay, now we have a couple of apps to talk about. Real quick, I'm just going to touch on Apple released a security paper about Face ID. So this is essentially, they want to put it out there, how it actually works, and when it doesn't work. So this, to me, is like an instantly addresses what happened on stage at the event. So this is as it's written, how it works. Face ID confirms attention by detecting the direction of your gaze, then uses neural networks for matching and anti-spoofing, so you can unlock your phone with a glance. So that's how it works. Now, when it asks for a passcode, which is what happened to Craig on stage, is when it's turned on or restarted, when it's not unlocked for more than 48 hours, when the passcode is not used to unlock in the last 156 hours, that's 6.5 days, and Face ID has not unlocked it in the last 4 hours, when it has received a remote lock command, when there has been 5 unsuccessful attempts, which is what happened, and after initiating a power off or emergency SOS by pressing and holding either the volume button and the side button simultaneously for 2 seconds. And some expansion on the probability of someone being able to fool Face ID. So on stage they said it's 1 in a million. They said obviously if you have a twin, and they've expanded to saying or a lookalike sibling, then that probability is different. And if you're under 13, where distinct facial features are not fully developed, then that's also different too. And I kind of feel like most under 13-year-olds won't be having an iPhone X/10. So
one can only hope.
Yes.
Seriously.
Exactly. I mean, maybe kids of rich parents, they're like, I want the emoji, but anyway. And just the Face ID data. So I had some comments from some very pro-Android people on Facebook. Try not to get into it too much. Ripping on Face ID, saying, my Samsung said this, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I don't even know where to start. And then people saying, oh, how do you know they're not going to, because I said about the data factor, oh, they're lying. Well, okay, but I'll take Apple's word for it. So they've expanded upon that. Face ID data doesn't leave your device. It is never backed up to iCloud or anywhere else. And you can actually choose to provide your Face ID diagnostic data to AppleCare when making a support claim. So that's a quick rundown of their security paper.
Yep, thank you. That was very very informative. So
Okay, so we have a couple of acts to talk about, and I'm going to let Nick introduce Australia to the TV app. So how's this been for you so far?
ooh, this is I had originally deleted videos, so it didn't actually show up originally, but on my Apple TV, it's been great. I actually like it. I use it to watch The Bachelorette when it comes out. And I added a few shows, just like I wanted to try Atlanta. I have watched Handmaid's Tale, but could envision watching it again, so I've added that to my up next. I've got a few things in there. Having the button mapped to that is probably not ideal because ultimately, given that we don't have Foxtel integration and, probably like, although that doesn't directly affect me, it affects a lot of people. And because we don't have like the ability to watch all of our shows, Netflix being another thing that's not supported, and for me personally, YouTube, like because I don't have all of those services integrated, it's not my go-to home screen for the Apple TV the way that Apple wants it to be. But I do like that it has like, it allowed me to find Man on a Wire, which is a movie I've been wanting to watch. That's on SBS On Demand, which I didn't expect it to be. And, it just surfaces a whole set of different content that I wouldn't have been able to find. So it's nice. I do like it. I'm happy we've got it. Hoping for some more integration, but I do like the localized sort of content.
I pretty much couldn't have said it better myself. That's pretty much mostly what I wanted to say. I feel like the only hesitation for me is I really champion things like ABC iView and SBS On Demand. I know there's a lot of good content in there. I just don't spend enough time in there. But as soon as I sort of go in, they're kind of showing me the more commercial, more advertised shows in there. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we already know about this show. Show me something else on iView or SBS I don't know about. So there were a few instances of that, but kind of not as much as I wanted to. So the discovery aspect was a bit less of an impact as I thought it would be, but that's because I'm already kind of involved in those other, Australian TV platforms. So I love the layout of it. I think, mapping it to the home button, I use the TV button, home button, whatever you call it. I always used to use that just to return to the main screen, and now every time it keeps opening the TV app, and I'm not expecting it to. So I get the idea of it. I just feel like currently, was it a slightly premature launch? I don't know. We certainly waited for it. I just feel like, you need to get a few more content providers on board. But the fact it's all sort of tied in one area, that's pretty cool. So I think both you and I agree it's good that we have it, and waiting for it to get better.
Yep.
Okay, now Nick informed me of this one. So, of course, we talked about IKEA having their own augmented reality app where you can place furniture amongst your home or wherever you're aiming the camera. And it was like, it's released, US only. I was like, bummer. And then you were like, oh, hey, here's an Australian link a few days later. So I was like, well, I certainly didn't hear about that. So thanks for telling me. And straight away I got onto it. So there's a few pros and cons. I like the fact that the models of the furniture load relatively quickly, even considering, my internet speed is pretty average. The sizing accuracy seems quite close as I want it to be, although at first when you place something, it looks unexpectedly large, but then you kind of realize, okay, well, this IKEA rocking chair is actually quite large anyway. So that's cool. The use of shadows, with like AI kit and that's pretty good. I posted a picture, anyone that follows our accounts, of a outdoor rocking chair on the lawn, and I actually, half the people that even mentioned it to me or commented on it or liked it, they thought I actually had gone out and purchased that chair. So that kind of like to you and I, we know it's artificial. To other people, they know, okay, yeah, that doesn't look quite 100% real, but it's enough to convince people that we actually went out and bought that chair specifically. So that's kind of like a big tick for me there. And I like the interface itself is quite simple and easy to use. Some cons is that I found that darker floors were harder for it to detect. So it kind of has to detect your space first before you can start placing things. And so it kind of took a while to initiate that with darker floors or darker carpets. The search function for the actual products themselves is pretty average. I wanted to just be able to search a type of thing and it pop up, but it just no results. Even when I used an exact name of a product, I found out that product wasn't actually within the app. So that leads me to my next thing. I think that they've put a lot in there, but not their entire catalog. So hopefully they expand that. And there's kind of like with a lot of these AR apps, you find that they have like a slow loading intro. And for this, they try and get around it by having like a slow fade in IKEA logo and a slow fade out. So that's a little bit of a pain to wait for, but compared to other AR apps, it's actually not too bad. And so, yeah, what about yourself?
So I have a lot of IKEA furniture. One of the couches that I have the 3-seater, and I've been thinking for a while, hey, what about the 1-seater, and putting that with it, and how would it work in this space? So then this is supposed to be size accurate, right? And I could then exactly see how it would fit in my living room. However, I think it may be with the darker floor issue, but I dropped the couch on the floor, the 1-seater, and it was probably 1.5 times the size height-wise of my 3-seater. So I was just well, obviously that is not right. So yeah, no matter what I did, I rescanned, changed where I was dropping it, turned it around, nothing worked. And so unfortunately my IKEA place review is short-lived because I gave up very quickly after it didn't work for me. So
yeah, I really think it's that darker floor factor. It's you see the yellow dots are loading, it's sort of detecting things all over the place. But for me, on my kind of wood style lino and outdoors, it worked pretty well and worked pretty fast. So I really think it's just to do with that darkness issue. So hopefully they can rectify that, because I love the concept of it. And I certainly want to use it more. And when I'm in the need to buy something else and I'm considering IKEA, I will definitely use it. This is a first off. I did have relatively high expectations for it, given AR kit. So I certainly think it's good, but it obviously has enough issues for you that you kind of might revisit it, several months down the track.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so we're just going to cap this off with Apple's acquisition. So they, as they always, their sort of go-to statement is that Apple buys smaller tech companies from time to time, and that is the exact reasoning for the purchase of French startup Regained. So they're a company that has a computer vision API for content recognition in photos, so no actual price figure was given to this purchase. Now, Regained's tech is reported to not actually currently be implemented in the Photos app, where you can primarily find this type of stuff, when you're searching people or searching objects and that sort of thing within Photos. Now, their tech boasts detection of aesthetic and technical values in your images. So they're talking about things like determining gender, age, and emotion. There is some hint that possibly some of this tech was used for the facial expressions in Animoji. So, it's just one of the things going to show that Apple are consistently improving this machine learning space. So, there you go. Just a small little acquisition on the side that they're not really going to talk about.
Yep. Apple acquires smaller tech companies from time to time and generally does not discuss their plans, right?
Pretty much.
But it's always interesting to just keep at least a note of sort of what they are buying, and we'll see this technology probably in a few years' time. Same with workflow. I know I had mentioned that I was pretty disappointed at the time that they couldn't do that in-house, but hopefully we'll see some really cool automation stuff coming to iOS in the next kind of 2 years. And this kind of stuff really does take take a while to work its way in, but when it does, things like Touch ID happen and it's all magical. So, yeah, I'm really excited
and then, of course,
to see.
Remember when we spoke about dark data?
Yes.
So there's that too, the very ominous dark data, which brings us to a cheerful end to the latest episode of Apple Slice. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram with Apple Slice Podcast, on Twitter with @AppleSliceAU, or Facebook.com/Apple Apple Slice Podcast. And if you'd like to subscribe...
Yep, you can search Apple Slice in your podcast player or visit appleslice.com.au and click any one of the podcast buttons.
There you go. All right. Anything else to add before we kind of wrap this up? We're in a bit of a weird space. We're like this post-event, still waiting iPhone 10/X pre-orders. But... I mean, there's still even other stuff like I want to kind of like delve into more of our experience of iOS 11, the actual release of iOS 11 for iPad. I haven't even really got to talk about High Sierra yet, so there's plenty of things to fall back on as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm particularly looking forward to HomePod, which I double-checked. I watched the keynote the other day, and Phil Schiller specifically said shipping in December, so we can expect, at least some to actually get our hands on it in December, and hopefully that means like late November, early December pre-orders. So, that's going to be really exciting. Hopefully before Christmas. So yeah,
I'm wondering whether they're going to wait for the iPhone 10 launch and then pull out surprise event for HomePod in November. I'm still hanging on to that event. I'm still waiting for that HomePod event.
Oh, but they could have the iMac Pro, right? iMac Pro is something.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so like, yes, they gave it 10 minutes, but it is supposed to change the future of computing. So I'm sure they'll have an event for that. So I'm going to not be a negative Nelly this time and say actually feasible. It reminds me of Mythbusters where they had like the stamps where like...
Yes, yeah, feasible.
Yeah, I'm going to say feasible.
Confirmed.
Yeah, cool.
All right, awesome.
All right.
It's good having a chat as always, Nick. And I'll catch you in the next episode.
Cheers.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.